and imagine that you have this, at best, mediocre programmer who has the bark of a wolfhound and the bite of a butterfly.
Woof. 1 week ago, I put out a video critiquing Earth 2's first devlog. In this devlog, Earth 2 used a lot of technobabble and a lot of flowery language to describe the very basic things that every game developer uses. Now, keep this in mind as it will be very important later. In response to my video, Shane Isaac, CEO of Earth 2, challenged me publicly to stand by what I said in my video.
Therefore, Callum, I publicly challenge you to do just that. Go right ahead and do it. I personally stand by my developers and their ability and their integrity, and I'm willing to fund this challenge for $10,000 to yourself or a charity of your choice. This is your chance to throw egg back on our face, Callum, and prove to all your followers that you spoke the truth in your video.
I have 7 days to recreate what I criticised in that video. Shane went on to give a list of 7 requirements that I have to meet. 1. Create a world with 774,000 meters by 774,000 meters. 2. Use clip mapping. 3. Utilize a base height map with 32 meter sample distance. Any other map spanning over the whole terrain is not allowed. 4. The compressed height map has to be streamed from disk, uncompressed in the background on the CPU with multi-threading, and the rest has to be done on the shader on the GPU. 5. You need to be able to have the same detail achievable on any point of the world. 6. Navigate the camera over the terrain without popping artifacts or typical clip map artifacts, with a camera speed of over 50,000 kilometers per hour. 7. Change the biomes and water level in real time. Now, some viewers who saw my original video will notice something. Not a single one of those requirements were actually shown off in their devlog. At least not to the extent that they're asking me to. This just shows that they were trying to set me up to fail, holding me to claims that I never made, and standards that they have not met. Nonetheless, I accepted the challenge. Anyway, here's what I made. Let's enter the metaverse.
Dear Earth 2 players, scam tubers, members of the Shadow Council, welcome to the first and only instalment of our Earth 3 developer video weblogs, where we will be providing brand new ways for you to give us money, and we will give you absolutely nothing in return. One of the most exciting development areas for Earth 3 is our run-of-the-mill terrain rendering engine, which is really not all that different from things found as standard in most game engines. We've simply made it bigger, and are not going to elaborate any further, because that might actually be impressive. We've used existing tools to develop a high-performance rendering pipeline that integrates both height map data with clip mapping. Early on in development, we discovered, completely on our own with no external help, that satellite data wouldn't work for a 3D game world. Who would have guessed it? Certainly not us. Loading terabytes of data is a hard thing to do, so we've designed a way to make it even harder, by saving the entirety of the Earth's surface as a single map. All you need is a 100 terabyte solid-state drive, and then you can have incredible detail anywhere in the world. We have also created a new proprietary and revolutionary global warming system. Snow melts, plants die, and seas rise in real time, giving you to-the-second updates on the end of Earth 1. We're showcasing an area of roughly 1 million square kilometers. That's more than every game world that has ever existed put together. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for worst MMO ever, Earth 3.
So there you have it, Earth 3. Now, I fully expect that Shane will somehow find a way to disqualify my win. We've already seen him move the goalpost several times during the challenge period. For starters, he'd claimed I'd already lost 30 minutes into the 7-day period, which, funny enough, at that time, I was still asleep. I hadn't even known that a challenge was issued. So disqualifying me in 30 minutes is pretty funny. He then did the exact same again 24 hours into the challenge, trying to disqualify me based on a time period. But also, in the first day of this challenge, before I had put anything in engine, I hadn't even opened the engine yet. I was doing napkin maths, and everything I was planning out was on paper. How was I going to do this in 7 days? 7 criteria, 7 days. He claimed with absolutely no evidence whatsoever that I had been using 10 developers to help me achieve this, despite evidence of me turning down help publicly. Now, Shane, your maths is off by an order of magnitude. I, in fact, did this by myself. I worked solo on this with no outside help. So let's take a look at the 7 criteria to see how mine does match the 7 criteria and how Shane's devlog fails to show any proof of this or do it at all. Now, let me clarify some confusion first. I'm not saying that his can't do all these 7 points. I'm just saying that he has requested that I do this without they themselves showing that they can. Criteria 1. Create a world with 774,000 meters by 774,000 meters. The Earth 2 devlog claimed that it was 600,000 meters. Now that's such a small discrepancy between what they're showing and what they're asking, so I'm willing to let that one slide. However, there is no evidence that the space they show is actually what they claim it is. I actually reached out to Shane asking for the coordinates of the area shown in his devlog so that I could use the exact same area in my video. But of course he didn't reply. On the other hand, my map is actually far bigger than 774,000 meters. It is in fact the whole of Earth. Criteria 2. Use clip mapping. Now, they claim they have some sort of proprietary tech to allow for seamless clip mapping. If that is the case, why did they not show that off as a big feature in their devlog? That would have been impressive. They talk about clip mapping as a whole as if it is this new mysterious tech, when they should have been talking about this proprietary tech. My demo uses clip mapping out of the box. Criteria 3. Utilize a base height map with 32 meters sample distance. Any other map spanning over the whole terrain is not allowed. No global color map, no global normal map, no curvature map. We worked all of that out using our own tech based on height map data locations alone. The only portion of this that was mentioned in their devlog was the use of height map data to get other information. Nothing was showcased of what other information they got or what they did with it. Also, not to mention, nothing in that devlog was said about sample size. Shane, if you want me to be impressed by your technology, you have to show us what your technology actually does. Don't throw around buzzwords like you're Oprah giving out cars. My demo does indeed do exactly what you've said. However, something else that I tried at one point during this was not using the data to derive curvature maps, because there's actually something called a very simple equation to calculate the curvature of places on Earth. The performance difference between the two was non-existent. So why would you do that anyway? It's kind of strange. Criteria 4. The compressed height map has to be streamed from disk, uncompressed in the background on the CPU with multi-threading, and the rest has to be done in the shader on the GPU, deriving things like curvature, normal, colors, etc., as we have done. This is the one where the devlog really starts to break down, because at no point did Shane ever make this claim in his video, and at no point did I criticize it. This is a very simple thing to do. In fact, it's so simple that graphical user interfaces have been doing this since the beginning of time. It's called loading. You've described how loading works. That's it. It's just loading an image that was compressed on disk. This touches on the main point of my last video. Shane uses very big, complex words and long sentences to describe something very, very simple. And if Shane stopped doing this and just described things as they are, I would have nothing to criticize. Literally. If he came out in the next devlog and said, hey, we've added this thing, we're using commonly available tech, but it's new to us and we think it's cool, I can't fault you for that. But when it's dressed up as proprietary tech that's going to change the industry, I have to call you out on it. Criteria 5. You need to be able to have the same detail achievable on any point of the world. We used a location in British Columbia, Canada, but our tech works the same for any place in the world. Now, this one makes me laugh. Not really because of what it is, but because of Shane's response. So what does this point mean? Well, clearly it's saying that the world needs to be consistent. However, a couple of days into the challenge, Shane moved the goalpost, and that now apparently means that I need to match the visual fidelity of the Earth 2 demo. Putting aside for a minute that I never criticised the visual fidelity of the devlog, this response shows something very important, that Shane purposely worded these criteria in a way so vague that no matter what I produce, he can interpret it as something completely different and basically disqualify me on any of the points that he has listed there. Now, I already knew this going in, but I really wanted to be wrong. I'm not mad, Shane. I'm just disappointed. This also touches on my point earlier of Shane using complex ways of explaining something that could be very simply explained. If that point said, you need to match the visual fidelity of Earth 2's demo, that's clear and concise. There's no room for interpretation there. The last thing I want to point out is this is a technology challenge, not an art challenge. I am a programmer, not an artist. For this demo, I stuck to the initial bullet points that he listed, as that is what the challenge was at the time of the challenge being posed. None of this moving goalposts day after day when he actually starts to panic that the person he challenged has actually started and accepted the challenge, and has not only accepted it, but had put out previews showing that it was well underway. Criteria 6. Navigate the camera over the terrain without popping artifacts or typical clip map artifacts. And by the way, our camera speed in the video is over 50,000 kilometers per hour, so you'll need to do that as well. I don't think Shane knows just how slow 50,000 kilometers per hour actually is. That's 13,888 meters per second. I can't even say that he is lying about how fast his camera goes because this is so slow. Criteria 7. Change the biomes and water level in real time similar to what we show in our video footage. The original devlog did talk about biomes, but it did not talk about changing biomes in real time. They did talk about snow and water levels, but that's not quite the same thing. If they had talked about changing biomes in real time, that would have actually been something quite cool, and something that not many games do. If they would have explained what their biome system actually does, I'd have probably left the biome point out of my video, but instead they described an incredibly average use of biomes, and that is what I commented on. But still, for my demo, this one did literally take 30 minutes, despite the real-time changing that was required of me. So there we go, a full breakdown of your video and my video. Now it's time to pick a winner, Shane. Now Shane, this is where I have a problem, because I obviously believe that I have won this challenge as I have fulfilled all of the requirements, and you are obviously going to believe that I haven't. My fans will believe that I have completed the challenge, your fans will believe that I haven't. And nobody's going to change their mind. So I would like to have a third party to judge who actually won this little challenge. I would like to nominate a member of the Earth 2 community, Guidebook Gaming, as he has been very impartial and unbiased to both sides of the community. He has been fair to Earth 2, he has been fair to the people calling out Earth 2. He is a man in the middle with no bias towards either of us, and I think that everybody could agree with that. The next thing that I have to talk about, Shane, is your absolute straw manning, goalpost moving, and dodging of just about everything. Your devlog 1 was pretty funny to me. Your devlog 2 was hysterical. And you knew that was going to be the case, which is why you unlisted the video and only linked it in your Discord in hopes that the Earth 2 critics wouldn't pick up on it and wouldn't be able to comment on it. I saw it within the first 30 seconds of you linking it because I am still in your Discord. Again, the word proprietary is thrown around at least 4 times in that couple of minutes of video. You claim that the model is proprietary, and yes, it is because it was made by you. That does technically fit the definition of proprietary. But you're making it sound like the model itself is a technological marvel, and that the model can do things that other models simply cannot. But my real sticking point with this video, this is the part that had everybody laughing. You took a out-of-the-box dynamic material instance and claimed it as a proprietary tech. To further back this up, you using big words or different words to describe something very easy to describe, you claim that you can change the dielectric properties of it. By that you mean its metallicness. And the reason you didn't use the word metallic is because that's the name of the single button slider in both Unity and Unreal to change its metallic value, because that is what you used. Here you can see that in 20 minutes of your video coming out, I had not only modeled something to resemble what you had, but I actually remade your proprietary dynamic material shader. You then came back swinging, saying that, oh, it's the fact that you can change them independently of each other. You don't just change the whole model's color. And yes, Shane, I know that is what a dynamic material instance is. So here you see on screen that I also recreated that, simulating around 20 of these, all having their colors changed every second on the fly in real time. It is nothing special. Your challenge never made sense from the beginning, because the burden of proof falls entirely on you. Me saying to you that you don't have something, the easy response is to prove that you do. If you have it, that's a 30-second job, right? But instead, you requested that for me to prove that you don't have something, I make the thing that you said you had, which doesn't prove the initial point, Shane. The burden of proof falls solely on you. Now, I would actually like to set you a challenge, Shane. All of those 7 points that you have requested that I prove, I want you to prove that you've done it. 1, because you already claim you have, and 2, because the challenge is already unfair from the beginning if you haven't, right? Because after all, I'm mimicking what you have done. And I have. But there's no proof that you've done it. And last of all, Shane, if you decide that you're not going to be a man of your word and you're not going to pay up the bounty for the challenge that I did in fact complete, and you're not going to pay the 10k, well, there's a good opportunity for the other metaverses here. Because if you don't stick to your word, this project that I've thrown together in 7 days is now for sale to any other metaverse except Earth 2 for the small price of $10,000.